Logan Gilbert has officially been named the Mariners' opening day starter. Joe and I are going to talk about that and what this means for this team because honestly, I think we all kind of thought it was going to be Luis Castillo. I'm going to share some of the stories that I have from spring training over the past couple of days because, yeah, there's more. Now, they're not going to be quite as good as meeting Nick Dunn's parents, just so we're clear, but I do have some more stories. I'm going to wrap it all up by talking about the final roster spots on this team. I know we've talked about it recently, but a lot has changed, and the picture's becoming a little bit clearer. Thank you guys so much for watching episode 174 of the Hit It Here podcast, part of the Bleav Network. The Carter, the Woods family, the Halama family, the Cole and CJ, and the countless other people whose names that I have missed over the past couple of days. It's been great to meet all of you guys down here in spring training. Been a heck of a lot of fun. And Joe, do you mind if I just start with one of my stories really quick?
Be my guest.
It kind of rolls with this. So I mentioned the Halamas there, and I was with Dustin and Holly. I met them at today's game down in Goodyear versus the Reds, and they were talking about Aaron Goldsmith. And I've met Aaron a few times before, and they're like, he seems so nice. Well, I'm like, yeah, he's a great dude. And who comes walking by but one Aaron Goldsmith? And so Dustin's like, Aaron! And Aaron comes waltzing over, and they're all talking, and they had some stories to share and whatnot. It was really cool. But then, when Aaron shook my hand, Aaron Goldsmith looked me in the eyes and said, you have a heck of a head of hair.
Nice.
And I'm like, of all people, Aaron? And then he goes, now that I'm getting older, I'm starting to get a few more gray hairs. And, I was kind of worried about it. He goes, but your hair gives me hope.
Wow.
And I'm like, he's like, your hair gives me inspiration to not dye it. And I was like, yeah,
Look
Aaron.
at you,
so
Silver Fox.
He said in like 5 years from now, he'll think of the random guy that he met at Goodyear. I'm just a random guy, Aaron. Appreciate that. The random guy that he met at Goodyear Ballpark with the head of hair. That is what he will remember me as.
Nice.
So,
nothing else in those 5 years. Nothing else. Nothing will change by that point in time, and everything will be right with the world.
That just means we still haven't done anything notable.
Yeah.
Speaking of not being notable, I'm here today with Joe. Joe, we are both sick.
Yeah, don't ask me how I'm doing because I just have to bold-faced lie to you, and I don't like to do that. Yeah, we're both sick. My right side of my face is it's the thing that I need to remove from my body immediately to feel better, and I can't do it, and it sucks. But that's a great Aaron Goldsmith story. Hopefully you are more than just the random man at Goodyear Ballpark in 5 years' time. What other stories you got from the past couple of days?
So my family was down here. My niece and nephew were down here. Shout out to Isaac and Ella. They were running around. They have never gotten autographs before, and so I was basically kind of showing them the ropes, right? Because Joe, you and I did it when we were their age all the time.
Yep.
But they don't know, and so I was living vicariously through them. And it was just crazy how nice some of these guys are. Harry Ford signed a bunch of times. Like, he's so cool. They got Cole Young's autograph. They got Colt Emerson's. They got Samad Taylor. Samad Taylor's the nicest guy in the world, by the way. He gave one kid his batting gloves. Colt Emerson gave a kid his bat.
Wow.
One thing that's really stood out to me over these past couple of days is just how good the Mariners players are, like, as people. They're just good people. And, like, you never saw Jared Kelenic doing that. You know what I mean? Like, don't get me wrong. I'm sure he signed some autographs and stuff, but how many times did that guy walk right past us?
We weren't necessarily the right age when that was.
How many times did he walk past everybody?
Okay, listen. I'm not here to point fingers at anybody. You're celebrating current Mariner successes. Don't live in the past, all right? Don't live in the past. Celebrate the now. You know what I mean?
That's right. You know what? And speaking of the now, the biggest autograph my niece and nephew got was the Andres Munoz autograph to end their spring training.
The closer.
That was the last thing they did. The closer, yeah. Which, if you guys haven't seen, the new Starters commercial the Mariners put out today, which is hilarious, seemed a little weird. Like, oh, the starters never finish anything because complete games aren't a thing anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, did you see it?
Yeah. That's I understood the point. Like, starters never finish the game. Yeah. Or what they're working on. Yeah.
But I was like, it kind of seems like a little bit of a backhanded compliment. Like
yeah, I mean, hey. They probably take it in stride. I mean, they all signed up to be part of the commercial anyways, right?
when you have Andres Munoz at the back end, right?
Yeah. Everything will end up usually okay with a guy like Munoz at the back end. But the fact that Isaac Canella got Munoz, like, you got his autograph to kind of cap off the trip, that is a good one to end on.
hmm And speaking of the pitchers, they were playing a game today at the backfields, all the pitchers. And it was, I believe it was Team Luis Castillo versus Team Logan Gilbert.
Whoa.
And what they were doing was they were fielding, um, like they would field a bunt, throw it to first base. That same pitcher would then do a pickoff move to second base. And then he would field a bunt to third base and then field a bunt to home. And you had to hit targets. And you got 5 points if you hit inside the target or hit the gong. And it was pretty entertaining to watch. Some guys I feel like cheated a little bit, but in the end, interestingly enough, Team Luis Castillo came out on top with the win. Which, of course, then everyone over there is doing the rock, after they won, naturally.
Do you know exactly who was on whose team?
I have it all on the stream that I did today from the backfields. I know on Luis's team, on Logan's team, it was him, Tom Wilhelmsen, randomly.
Sure.
I believe Gabe Spire was on their team. Bazardo, Vargas. Brian Wu was on Luis's team, and Brian Wu was really good at this game. I think he got 25 points himself. But yeah, I think because if you get all 4, I think you get a bonus 5. I don't remember how it worked. I caught it about halfway through. But interestingly enough, Team Luis Castillo beat Team Logan Gilbert in this game of the pitchers. And for opening day, though, Logan Gilbert beat out Luis Castillo as the opening day starter, Joe.
Yeah, you said at the top that it was something that we had anticipated being Castillo. I feel like I've been kind of like 50-50, split down the middle of where I thought it would land. I would have probably given the edge to Castillo just on the idea that he'd done it already. This might be his last chance to do it, and then Logan would take over in 2026. I don't have any harsh feelings either way. I don't think it matters ultimately that much at the end of the day. And all the stuff that we've heard about it from Dan, from Logan, just like stuff on social media, Luis is taking it very well. I don't think there's any like animosity, any bad blood, and I wouldn't imagine there would be when your starting rotation is as tight knit as it seems like they are. You know what I mean? And Logan is a guy that, one, Luis can recognize that he's probably earned it. You know what I mean? He's been with the Mariners organization his entire career, obviously drafted, developed, led the entire league in innings pitched last year, made all 33 starts, has been healthy every single season. Luis wasn't healthy at the end of the year. Yes, he's going to be healthy for opening day, but the fact that Dan Wilson is... Right. Good. The fact that Dan Wilson's giving Logan the nod on opening day, I think it's just a testament to celebrate Logan's tenure with Seattle, not anything to say about Castillo. It's more about Logan than it is about Castillo, in my opinion.
I agree with that, but let me ask you a follow-up question here.
Huh?
Do you think if Scott was still the manager, Logan Gilbert would get the opening day start?
I think Scott would have given it to Castillo. And on either side, I don't think there's anything wrong with either point of view. I think there's valid points to say Logan should have it. I think there's valid points to say that you should still give it to Luis. Because whether or not people are so hung up on the trade rumors and, if Luis feels slighted by the organization all offseason and then you take away opening day from him, is there bad blood on that part? I mean, maybe there's a sour taste in his mouth, but he's a professional. He knows the job that he's supposed to do, and it's to go out there and be the rock. And he'll still do that every 5 games. It's just going to be in the second spot in the rotation instead of the first. And throughout a full 162, that's not going to stay consistent. You're going to re-slot several times throughout the year. Pitchers are probably going to miss a handful of starts in a given year. The Mariners have been very lucky with their pitcher health the large part of this, I guess, core's rotation. I mentioned Logan hasn't really missed a start. I don't think in 2021, did he start the year? He started the year down in Tacoma, right?
Mm-hmm. Him and Jared came up on the same day, I believe.
Exactly. So his 24 starts in 2021 are because he didn't start the year. It's like when George got called up in 2022 on Mother's Day. That is just, if you look at Logan's page, it's like, oh, he only had 24 starts in 2021. It's because he wasn't there to start the year. you're not going to have every single pitcher make all 32 starts in a given 162. It's just very unlikely. And we're already seeing that with George being out for the first month. Penciling in a guy like Brian Wu for all 32 starts, I mean, you're playing with house money at that point if you think you're going to get away with that. So Luis, he has to know that it's not that big of a deal. And I really don't think it is. I think there are certain situations where someone's ego could play into it and it could be a problem. Like if Garrett Cole was healthy and the Yankees were like, we're going to give Max Fried opening day, that might be a bit different because Cole's done more, I think, for the Yankees as an organization. And I think he might have
he's a crybaby.
Sure. He's a bit more of an, like, he's got a bit more of an ego, more of a diva style personality from what I can see from an outsider's perspective. Whereas I don't think Luis is like that. And even if Luis had won Cy Young in 2024 or 2023, you know, in his first full season with Seattle and then had it the same year that he had last year, would he be getting opening day? Maybe he'd still be going to Logan. And I don't think it would matter even in that circumstance either. It's just another start. And being able to celebrate it with a guy that's come up through the organization like Logan Gilbert, I think is more so why they went that direction. And again, like I said, it's less to do with Castillo, more to do with Gilbert.
I agree with that. I think that it doesn't matter, like you said. I mean, who do the White Sox have starting?
Sean Burke.
They just announced this today.
Sean Burke. I've never heard of the man in my life.
Yeah, never heard of him. Like, I can, like, who's in there? Like Jonathan Cannon, right? Is he a person?
Yeah, and
like,
what's his name?
There was one more.
He had a mustache last year.
Yeah.
He started against Bryce.
The Mariners.
Yeah, hold on, I'll go look it up.
Yeah. Well, while you're doing that, I think it doesn't matter, and no one should care. And Luis doesn't seem like he cares because I've seen him, you know, at the backfield this past couple days, just celebrating, being jovial, whatever. And if anything, hopefully it goes to show him, like, hey, you got to step it up. Like, you're supposed to be the veteran, the journeyman in this rotation. You need to be a big part of it. I think what we can take from this, however, is not who's starting, who cares, but the change in philosophy of this clubhouse, of this team. Because like we both agreed on just now, if Scott was still the manager, we both think that Luis gets this start. Probably. He gets opening day. And I think that is something that with Dan Wilson, things are going to look a little bit different. We have always we saw with Scott Service how everything was always how he drew it up. And there was, you can't go away from the plan. He wasn't going to
deviate very often.
He wasn't going to deviate. That's the right word. Deviate from the plan. And so I think I was talking to Connor, the Couch GM, at the game today, and he mentioned how a game in Miami last year, there was Ryan Bliss was 3 for 3, and he was about to come up with the game on the line against a right-handed pitcher, and then Scott instead went to Josh Rojas, and Josh Rojas struck out or something like that. And so it's like, why would you not roll with the hot hand there, the guy who's been seeing the ball well today, and instead go with Josh Rojas? That's something that I don't think Dan will do that. Like, Dan's a bit more old school. Dan's a guy who I think he's going to look at the advanced analytics and whatnot and say, okay, well, you have a better chance here, blah, blah. But also he probably would have kept Ryan Bliss in there. Or when you're talking about making moves in the bullpen, and don't get me wrong, Dan's going to make a million mistakes. Okay, it's
whoa. I think ultimately the kind of point you're going to make is that he's going to let the boys play. That's the idea. He's going to let the guys who are playing well, seeing the ball well, throwing well, give them the benefit of the doubt as opposed to relying on the analytics and what the platoons say. I think the bullpen's a bit of a, the pitching moves are a bit more touch and go as opposed to offensively with you're going to look to the matchups, I think, more than you would for the bullpen than you would for position players, like pinch hitting and stuff like that would be my assumption, but I could be very wrong about that. But continue and finish your thought.
Yeah, thank you for saving me. A. But B, yeah, I think that is kind of where Dan's going to go. He's going to roll with the hot hand. He's going to go with the guys that are performing. And that is why, Joe, I think that as we look at the final roster spot on this team, the final couple, things have changed a lot since we made our video about it a couple weeks ago now. We didn't mention Miles Masterboni in that video at all. Oversight on our part. He's been hitting the cover off the ball, and he can play everywhere.
Yeah.
I think he makes his team. What do you think?
I mean, he's hitting what, 450?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's playing well. A 1.1 OPS. You say that it was an oversight, or was it tactical to do a little bit of comment engagement farming? We'll never know. We'll never know. We'll never know. We'll never know. Um, a little aside, it was Drew Thorpe was the pitcher that I was thinking of, but
Yes.
he is probably going to start the year on the injured list due to a bone spur in his elbow that ended his season
Ugh.
early. Masterboni making the final roster spot, one of the 26 men on opening day. I over Rowdy or over Ryan Bliss, because I think those three are the three that are going to be competing for it, assuming that they don't DFA Mitch Haniger. If they DFA Mitch Haniger, or he starts on the injured list, because it was such convenient timing. By the way, I have to give people their flowers. So I think it was Mariner Mojo that started the main dialogue of like, we haven't seen Mitch Haniger for a bit, and then Brady Farkas for Refuse to Lose was like, hey, this might be something. And then I swear to God, I saw the tweets within 5 minutes of each other, because I had just opened Twitter that day, or I saw those from the day before. And then Divish comes on, it's like, hey, Haniger's got a sore left shoulder. He's just whatever. It was insane timing on all accounts from my perspective of when I saw all three of those things kind of take place. If it's a longer duration of an absence from Mitch Haniger, that does open the Mariners' door a little bit to have, I want to say some fun, but maybe some fun. Get a little rowdy on opening day while maintaining a roster spot for Miles Masterboni as well. Because on roster resource right now, it still has Haniger in the opening day lineup, DH. He's still in there. But on your bench, you've got Bliss in the starting lineup at second base. That's roster resources is drinking the Kool-Aid. Garver on the bench, who hand seems like it's fine. He's been playing. That's good news.
Almost hit a homer today.
Yeah. You have Donovan Solano, you have Dylan Moore. Now that final spot belongs to Rowdy Tellez on roster resource. So I think they've got until the 23rd to add him to the 40-man until he can elect free agency, I think.
And they have an open 40-man spot right now.
Yes. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. Like I just said, though, Masterboni's not listed on roster resource. The way that I think he makes the opening day rosters if Haniger starts the year on the injured list, in my opinion. I don't think Haniger, he's just making too much money. They're not the front office and ownership are going to be so unbelievably stubborn with how much money that they're paying him that they're not just going to cut him. Unfortunately, because Masterboni and Tellez are going to give you more than Haniger would. I think, pretty safely. And I think Bliss has played his way into the opening day second baseman starting job. Dylan Moore's been horrendous. Leo Rivas, I think, he's not quite there yet. And he's more of I think if JP goes on the injured list or one of the second basemen goes on the injured list, one of your infielders, basically, Rivas is then one of the guys that can come up. You know what I mean? But Masterboni is an interesting one. Because he's out of the five hitters, he's hitting the best, I'd say. I mean, you could argue maybe Bliss, but Masterboni's got better stats, so it's really doesn't matter that much. Bliss, Tellez, and Masterboni, of the five that I've said, are the best that are playing right now. And do they deserve a shot to be on the 26-man roster to start the year? Yes. It's just, will Mitch Haniger go on the injured list or not?
And you touched on a lot of things that I wanted to talk about there. So I'm glad it sounds like we're kind of on the same page here. With Mitch, how bad could his shoulder actually be? I haven't even seen him around camp. I saw George Kirby around camp. I have not seen Mitch Haniger around camp.
So is this like a Jesse Winker type situation where there's an injury, but he's just kind of away for a moment and they're going to kind of scoot him out the door? Obviously, Winker left on much worse terms than I would assume Mitch Haniger would ever leave.
Right.
But, if we're likening it to a situation of an injury ushering someone out of the organization, I wouldn't be
Well,
surprised if something similar. I mean, if you're saying he's not around camp, I mean, maybe he saw a specialist or something, but I don't
mhm.
know.
Well, and like you mentioned, the Mariners, I think it almost is they'd be too stubborn to cut him. They'd be too stubborn to DFA him, like you mentioned. But there is the caveat where you could put him on the injured list and to start the year and just see. Buy yourself some more time to have both Rowdy and Master Boney on your 26 man. And I think that might be the move. That might be what the Mariners are going to do because they want to buy a little bit extra time. And if one of those guys isn't hitting or like just isn't playing well, then boom, DFA them or
Mhm.
whoever, and then just bring Mitch back from the injured list. And you have averted any like bad blood that you could have with Mitch Haniger for cutting him and any ill will with the fans and
Yeah.
whatnot. And you solve it right then and there. And dude, Rowdy should be on the team. He was 3 for 5 today. Hit a ball off the top of the fence. He thought it was a home run. Was high fiving Eric Young Jr. at first base, and then turns out it wasn't. It wasn't a home run. And then so his next at bat, what's he do? I literally started tweeting that I have seen enough. Put Rowdy on the 26 man
And then he hit a homer.
as he had a 3-1 count in the at bat that he hit the home run because I'm like he's either gonna walk or something.
Yeah.
So I started tweeting it, and then he hit an absolute moonshot over the restaurant in right field down at Goodyear. It was crushed and it was loud, like that kind of power to right field at T-Mobile Park. Like
It'll
Rowdy
play.
could be a guy that hits you 30 plus.
If he's seeing
Like
enough ABs, right? That's the caveat. If he's playing well enough to see 450 to 500 at bats, could he give you Jock Peterson level DH production that he gave the Diamondbacks last year in strictly seeing right-handed pitchers? Maybe like if he's playing at like his best. Are we gonna?
mhm,
Would I be comfortable penciling him in for that? Not necessarily. You know what I mean. But I
mhm.
understand. You're there. You're witnessing it. It's your perfect kind of vibes guy with a Danny Burgers, a Mike Ford, a Rowdy Tellez. Like that's right up your alley. So I don't blame you. One thing
I feel
before you
seen.
you do feel seen. One thing. It's I wonder if this will change your mind or change your perspective. But Miles Mastroboni has an option left. So you start the year with him on the roster. Mitch Haniger's on the IL for a month. 2 weeks. And then you can option him down to AAA, and then by June, if he's not ready, then you can by June if Haniger's not playing well, then you can just call Mastroboni back up because he has that option left available. I think either way, if he starts in AAA or if he starts on the major league roster, having that option available for Mastroboni is big for his spot and what his value can be for the Mariners for 2025. Whether he puts up half a win, it doesn't matter. It's versatility that some other guys on this roster don't necessarily have. Like Rowdy, he doesn't have an option. He has to make the opening day roster or he doesn't. You know what I mean? So I think that's a small difference there.
Mhm. Um, does that change my perception? No.
Yeah.
I still think they should both be on the opening day roster. Um, Leo Rivas should be in AAA. He should not be in the majors. Like
Yeah.
he's hitting just as bad as Dylan Moore is. Send him down. He's not worth having on this roster. And like you said, I am 100% convinced now that Ryan Bliss should be the starting second baseman. Dylan Moore looked awful today. He was like 1 for 5, I think, or 1 for 6. And it was this little dinky ground ball in the 5-6 hole. Otherwise, he pops everything. Like he has looked, and I like Dylan. I know I've harped on him a lot. I think he's a great dude. He's super fun. He has to figure it out
Yeah.
because he is so incredibly valuable to this team. But if he's not hitting, he's going to get passed up by a guy that is like Miles Mastroboni, and they're going to deploy him in spots where you would normally see Dylan Moore. Mastroboni is basically left-handed Dylan Moore over the past couple of years. He can play literally any position.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's been hitting the ball well in spring. Until Dylan is ready, until Dylan is swinging the bat the way he feels like he should not be getting at bats during the actual season. And that's why I think that Ryan Bliss, I mean, he's the guy. He truly is. He has to be your starting second baseman. He's earned that much. I think that the one guy that has played well as well, but is going to be the fall guy here, which sucks because I like him, is Austin Shenton,
Huh.
who had a couple of hits today, but I don't Bleav he has options. I know he was DFA'd
Oh no,
by the Rays.
he's got two options.
Does he?
He
The
wa-
Rays just had the Rays just had a 40-man crunch, and they decided to get rid of Austin Shenton.
yeah, he's got two options left. Well, I mean,
Rays are a stupid organization.
yeah, it's an interesting one. Yeah, he's got two options left, so we're good on that front.
Hmm.
So, and you know, he's another guy that an injury happens or he's hitting the cover off the ball in Tacoma could see some time in the bigs. But yeah, I think the only one that's really out of options. I mean, you're looking at Nick Dunn, Rowdy Tellez, of guys that are like really pushing that like need to make the opening day roster to have it make a difference. Spencer Packard, he's out of options. So I think he'd have to go through waivers if they have to send him down to Tacoma. I think that's how that would work.
Yep.
Of like the position players, I think those are like the main ones because like we obviously saw Cole Young and Ben Williamson get optioned to AAA, or that's technically what happened, right?
Yeah, I mean they were just optioned to minor league camp. They haven't officially
yeah.
been said, but yeah.
Okay, that's right. Because
same with Tyler Locklear.
I think Locklear got. I think it said Locklear got optioned to AAA Tacoma. I could be very wrong.
Oh, really?
It doesn't matter. Regardless, they're not making the opening day roster for all the Ben Williamson stands out there. I'm sorry to all the Cole Young stands. I'm sorry. You're gonna have to wait a little bit longer. Oh, Jacob Nottingham, he's out of options. So,
yeah. I think Nottingham is behind like even Blake Hunt at this point.
Oh yeah,
and
1,000,000,000%.
With how good of a spring Harry's had, I think he's behind Harry Ford.
He should.
I think that because of how good Harry has played, he should just start at AAA. I don't think that he should go back to Dickie Stevens.
I think he will probably start in AAA and split time with Blake Hunt behind the dish, and then other times one of them can DH or Harry can go play a corner outfield spot since he was doing that a little bit last year with Arkansas. The thing with the Mariners roster and just like a lot of the players in the organization, it seems like there's a fair amount of versatility that can allow for guys to kind of move around and not have to stick in one spot necessarily, which is beneficial to most players. The one that there's two that are very void of that, which is Rowdy Tellez and Mitch Haniger. Both are, they're one position, and it's a DH as like maybe the main thing for them. Rowdy can play first, but Mitch is not an outfielder anymore. He's just a DH. And so that roster crunch of like how we've kind of talked about it all spring of like, is this really happening? As the spring has gone on, I mean, more and more, it becomes truer and truer that Haniger's not as valuable to this team as Rowdy Tellez. Is he as valuable to this team as Miles Mastrobuoni? Probably not. Especially if, I mean, do we think Mastrobuoni is going to come into the season hitting 450? No. That's not necessarily what we think. But does he have a sore left shoulder? No. Great. He can play defense in the field? Great. He can steal you bases? Great. Like, there's so much more and he's a lefty. Your mic is really bad about picking up the initial sound that your voice makes. So it just sounded you said FD. FD. Making him laugh when he's sick is a bad idea. Ultimately, I don't think you're wrong about Mitch. And I think if there's some sort of salvation for his roster spot, it is sending him on the injured list and giving Miles Mastrobuoni a month of playing time. And then if he's not doing well, then you can option him and then bring Mitch back. I think is the way to go. If I was in the chair, if I was the man making the decisions for the Mariners front office right now, that's probably what I would do.
And I think that it's like these guys they've earned it. Like it's pretty clear that that's what the Mariners should do. And like I mentioned earlier, Dan's probably going to roll with the hot hand here. And that's the hot hand. And Dan probably likes what he sees out of those guys. And we mentioned in the last podcast that like Mitch is just a DH. That position is filled 10 times over. He can play outfield. That position's filled 10 times over. The position that isn't filled, really, is first base. You have Donovan Solano and Luke Raley. But Luke Rayleigh, like I've said before, is better suited as an outfielder and as a roving guy, the fourth outfielder that gives all the other guys days at DH or days off. And then have Donovan Solano and Rowdy Tellez split time at first base, or have Garver and Rowdy Tellez split time as the DH.
Yep.
That is, I think, when it comes to matchups, like if you look at the opening day roster, if you have Rowdy as the DH and Luke Rayleigh as the first baseman, or vice versa, that is probably your best bet in that game.
Mm-hmm.
And you said, I think one of the last times we talked, if Rowdy Tellez is hitting 300, he's almost there.
Yeah, I mean he's at the benchmark. He is hitting his way onto the team.
If he's hitting tanks, he's there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
he's doing
I'm all in.
He's doing everything that I've asked him to do to make the team, and that's all that he can do.
I think that should be rewarded with a spot on this team. I mean, when you think about it, what's today? Today's Sunday. The next podcast that we do, the day it comes out, is a week before opening day.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that wild to think that we are that close?
We're back, baby.
We're so back. And the Mariners roster is getting pretty cut down too. So like by the next podcast, we'll probably have even more answers or an even clearer picture of what this is going to look like moving forward. But that's going to do it from us here on episode 174 of the Hit It Here podcast, the emergency episode of the podcast. And go Sickness.
Sponsor us, please. Emergency, please.